Well, good evening, and I'm going to call the meeting to order, and welcome to the Raymore City Council regular meeting for Monday, March the 9th. Could I please have the roll call?
Councilmember Abdelgawad.
Here.
Councilmember Barber.
Present.
Councilmember Berenson.
Present.
Councilmember Burke.
Present.
Councilmember Circo.
Present.
Councilmember Holman.
Present.
Councilmember Jacobson.
Present.
Councilmember Townsend.
Present.
And Mayor Turnbow.
Present. Would you all please rise and join me in a pledge of allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We'll now move on to staff reports. We have no presentations on our calendar tonight or personal appearances. So, Mr. Feuerborn.
Thank you, Your Honor. I would ask Mr. Carteret to make a report for Development Services.
Thank you, sir. Two items this evening. I want to start with just talking a little bit about building activity. It'll be a very active spring for construction in Raymore. Currently, we have 160 dwelling units under construction, various phases of construction activity. A couple of large projects that we'll start seeing here in the spring, the Lofts apartment community there in Fox Ridge Drive at Eagle Glen. They're getting very close to getting all their pad sites ready for foundation work to start. Then, of course, Compass Health Facility, the big 40,000 square foot office building. They're doing a lot of site work right now, but they're wanting to move quickly on that construction as well. A couple of commercial remodeling projects we'll have going on. CVS is going to be doing some interior and some exterior renovations to their store, and then the old Pizza Hut will be transformed into a new version of the Slotsky's Deli. So we're excited about the reuse of that building. Upcoming, as far as commission activity, on March 17th, we actually have two meetings at 6 o'clock. Our Board of Adjustment will consider a variance request for a fence for property 712 Meadow Lane. Then at 7 o'clock that evening, our Planning Commission will hold a public hearing for rezoning of 4 acres of land as part of the Foxwood Springs development. This 4 acres is located north of the main residential area. It's the area where the maintenance building is located at, where their small thrift store is located at. That's actually a property zoned agricultural. So Foxwood Springs is looking to rezone about 4 acres around that building to make the zoning consistent with the rest of the development. It's not land area where they propose any improvements on it. They simply want consistency of the zoning. In essence, they want to be able to split off that 4 acres from the large acreage that's undeveloped north of their property and combine it with the assisted living facility property. So just all steps they need to take to be able to transfer the property as one entity moving forward. That's currently what's scheduled with our Planning Commission. That concludes staff report.
And Jim, the last time you talked about is kind of come on due to the property changing hands over there. Is that correct?
That is correct. There is a sale that is looming, and they want to make sure that the maintenance building goes with the larger assisted living building. So they want everything to be consistent zoning wise.
Thank you. Any questions of Mr. Carteret? Hearing none, Mr. Feuerborn.
Thank you, Mr. Carteret. I would ask Chief Zimmerman to make a report for the Police Department and Emergency Management.
Thank you, Mr. Feuerborn. We're going to do a fashion show tonight, so I'd like to ask Detective Earl Lancourt to come up, and we're going to talk about the exterior vest carrier that we're going to be deploying within the police department. So we'd like for the community and the council to see what that looks like. Over the past couple of years, there has been significant officer interest in exterior vests as other departments in the metropolitan area and across the nation have gone to these vest carriers. And so in employee conversations and surveys, we know that this is something that our officers have been very interested in for a significant period of time. So we conducted extensive research looking at the exterior vests because there's all kinds of products out there, different ones that are available on the market. We wear tested a number of vests with our officers here in Raymore and looked at some research that had been done across the nation. The Department of Justice had actually issued a grant for a study that found that both studies and collective law enforcement experience indicate that over an officer's 10 20 or 30-year career of wearing a duty belt, which we in law enforcement have all done for years, that the belt's weight and pressure cause not only daily discomfort and fatigue, but also have some long-term negative effects with lower back pain, lower back problems, numbness, tingling, sciatica, and all sorts of things that sometimes the officers don't realize until they've had that duty belt on for 30 or so years and they start having those problems. We also looked at a University of Wisconsin study that was done in conjunction with the Mayo Clinic that found that the exterior vest carrier was a healthier alternative to the traditional duty belt because what they found that while these vests weigh more than the duty belt, the weight is more evenly distributed, so there's less pressure on the hips and the lower back. We also, as part of our research, contacted our own insurance carrier, Midwest Public Risk, and talked to Aaron Ambrose there at NPR, who counts this, the exterior vest carrier, in replacement of the duty belt as one of the top 10 best practices for the health and safety of our officers. In preparation for the possible deployment of the vest, we sent 2 of our defensive tactics training officers to training at the KCPD. And the reason that we did that is because it's a significant change to the muscle memory for the officers where that equipment is placed. Those things that you see that Earl has on the exterior vest carrier previously on your belt, so if you're going to be reaching for your handcuffs, you're no longer reaching on your belt, you're reaching someplace on the vest carrier. So it will require extensive training for our officers to make sure that that equipment now is in a different place than it had previously been. So it's not just a matter of changing a shirt or changing where that equipment is located. So thanks to Councilman Dale Jacobson, who introduced me to Daryl Smith of the Hero Fund USA, and Mr. Smith is with us tonight. Wave, Mr. Smith, there he is. We presented a request to him and the Hero Fund USA to help with offset the funding or offset the cost of purchasing these vests for our officers, and he presented this request to his board of directors, who gave approval and presented us with a donation of $3,472.50, which is half the cost of the vest to outfit all of our officers. So we are absolutely in his debt for providing us with that funding. And so we're now looking to identify funding for the necessary equipment that we've identified for placement on the vest, and Earl can kind of point out some of those. The handcuff and radio cases, glove and magazine pouches that will be placed on the vest for about an additional $2,000 in order to outfit all of our officers with those additional pouches and pockets that will be placed on the vest. These items were not included in our original request with Hero Fund USA because we needed to have that training and we needed to know exactly what we were going to deploy on the vest as a result of that training as well. So I'm happy to answer any questions. We're really excited about this. Our officers are excited. This is going to be a very welcome change. And if you have any questions for Earl about how it feels on, I'm sure he'll be happy to answer those as well.
So I'm going to ask Chief, so we're reusing the ballistic part. This is just a carrier vest,
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, those vests that, obviously the interior insert that's not expired, absolutely.
Okay. Mr. Holman?
Chief, this is an excellent idea that many departments have resisted over a number of years. Having worn almost every version, including the one you probably wore, where we wore the plate that actually guided a bullet up towards your neck, which wasn't great, but going to the outer carrier versus the carrier that stays inside your shirt has another advantage, and that it's hard to see right now because we're in March, but when we get into those 100+ days of July and August, it does allow the officer an opportunity, should he need to get overheated and really sweaty, come back to the office and just take that off quickly, cool down, and then put it back on and go to work. And it's a great idea. Thank you very much, and thank you to the foundation that's providing this. It's excellent.
Well, and I will tell you too, and thank you for the segue, that we are actually looking at a number of non-traditional shirts that look like a police shirt, the sleeves and the collar and that sort of thing, but the part that's under the vest is actually nylon. It's lightweight and breathable. So we're looking at some different shirt options as well to go underneath. So it won't change the look of our uniform, but it'll change the discomfort of the officers, especially when it's hot.
Good. Anyone else? Okay. Thank you, Earl. Appreciate it. Thank you very
You
much.
don't want him to turn or walk the catwalk or anything
He's
like
been
that?
doing a good
I
job
told
while
him
I
that
was there.
It's going to be like a red carpet thing. And, yeah, pointing while I'm talking. Thanks, Earl.
Anything else, Chief?
Go ahead.
On that particular?
You want me to go ahead and introduce Mr. Murdock? Okay, I guess I'm up next too.
Before
Ryan,
you move on, Mr. Smith, thank you for being here tonight. I want to thank y'all again, the Hero Fund, for looking at Raymore. I know we talked about it a little bit earlier, but it really is a wonderful opportunity for our department, and we thank you for choosing us as the recipient of that. So thank you very much.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
would you like to
Well, sure. Well, I mean,
pass it down and you can hand
if
it
you
to the
haven't,
gentleman?
if you can stick around and haven't been here yet, well, Mr. Holman is the coin carrier of the community here. Thank you, Mr. Holman.
and thank you again to Daryl Smith. Such a pleasure working with him and his group.
Absolutely.
Our next presentation is not nearly so nice. It's Mr. Murdock talking about Corona. So I would ask Mr. Murdock to come up.
Good evening. First, thanks for giving me the opportunity here to give you all a brief update of what is going on within the city and kind of on a local and regional perspective for the preparedness and response to the coronavirus outbreak. The very first thing I want to stress is the update that you're given tonight here is kind of based on various discussions from different departments within the city. We've met over last week and then this week as well, so you're getting kind of an update from all of us at once. I'm just the presenter here tonight for you. You also received a brief packet with some frequently asked questions that people might be asking you in relation to the coronavirus and our responses to those particular questions. If you need any follow-up on those, obviously don't hesitate to ask. And then you also were presented with a brief COVID-19 informational sheet based on the CDC's recommendations and then guidance for our law enforcement officers in relation to the coronavirus outbreak and what the CDC is advising for law enforcement officers. So all of that information is located within the packet that you got before the council meeting tonight. I just want to highlight just 4 quick things in terms of the response and the planning and preparedness that we are doing within the city and the emergency management community in the Kansas City region. We're obviously trying to plan for any contingency. That probably goes without saying. But I think it's very important that the council note that none of us within the city are medical professionals. And as a result, if residents call the city for any medical advice relating to the coronavirus, it's really important that not only we will be directing them to local health departments, the state health department and Department of Senior Services and or the CDC. And that's important for everybody that might get asked a question about the coronavirus, that we are not medical professionals, unless you actually are a doctor. But if you're not a medical professional, we obviously are directing them to those medical professionals to give medical advice. If people are asking about our actual response to the coronavirus, they need to know that every single day we are in contact not only with our local agencies, that includes South Metro Fire, that includes Cass County, that includes the Mark region, but we also are talking with the State Department of Health and Human Services to make sure that we are updated on a daily basis. In terms of consistent information, we are using the CDC, and that becomes really important. It's up on the screen there, and I'm not sure if it's on your computer screens as well. But we are directing people to the CDC's website. It is an easy navigation for anybody who wants the most updated information. All they have to do is go to cdc.gov. It is one click because it's right on the front. And once they click on that, then they can scroll down, and there are 3 different categories of information that people can get. They can get what you should know about the virus, they can get the situational updates about the virus, and then they can get information based on what kind of organization they are representing, whether it's just for their community, whether it's for the schools, or whether it's for their business. All of those things are updated now on a daily basis, with the exception, I want to make sure that people understand this, the statistical numbers are updated Monday through Friday at noon based on numbers received by 4 p.m. the previous day. So for example, today, you'll see that there's 423 cases of coronavirus according to the CDC's website. That's because that's the number at 4 p.m. yesterday. You might see in the media, for example, that there's far more cases than that, obviously, today. The other thing the media is not going to report, but the CDC is going to start reporting, is the number of people who were diagnosed with coronavirus but have already recovered during that particular period, as the first case started in middle January. So that's also an important factor when we start looking at the total number of cases. For us here in the city of Raymore, and as an emergency management director, preparedness, planning, don't panic, okay? Don't panic. As many people obviously are aware, this is presenting itself like flu-like symptoms. 80 to 85% of the people who are receiving who have gotten the coronavirus are receiving little to no medical attention and are recovering, just like you would do for a normal flu. So I think that becomes really important, that we don't want to diminish the seriousness of it, and we're not trying to suggest that, but at the same time, the hysteria and panic that has kind of gripped the country, we need to understand kind of where we're at here, right? That it is a flu-like bug, and that most people, okay, are going to recover without any medical intervention necessary. As many of you probably are aware, the most vulnerable people are the elderly and those with underlying respiratory conditions. So those are things that we would want to watch out for within our populations. So the last thing that I would tell you here from our perspective here in the city is we will continue to have the daily meetings. We have a conference call with the governor tomorrow. Missouri continues to receive more testing kits. Congress passed a budget to allow more money to go to the states to allow us to help fight the coronavirus outbreak. But again, we cannot stress enough, right? Call your medical professional if you have any questions whatsoever, and don't panic. So I'm happy to answer any questions, or if Chief Zimmerman has anything that she'd like to add, feel free.
Thank you, Ryan. Great information. Anybody have any questions? Appreciate it very much.
All right, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Mr. Fearborn.
Thank you, Chief, and thanks, Mr. Murdock. Next week's work session, March 16th, we currently have 4 items on for that particular work session. The Cass County Library folks will be here to make a presentation on their upcoming ballot issue to you all. We will be having a presentation on Census 2020 to give you an update on where that is at. We will be speaking with you about the I-49 widening project and looking for a consensus from the council to come before you the following week with a request for a consultant relative to the economic development impact of that and the engineering impact of that. It will be in the form of a shared cost agreement with the city of Belton and Cass County. We met with them all today. Then we're going to be coming to you on a most unpleasant topic, asking for some emergency funding. It appears that we are going to have to take the tower in front of City Hall down. It has become structurally intolerable. That will be next week's work session. That concludes staff reports this evening, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Fearborn. Any questions of Mr. Fearborn? Okay. So we have no committee reports. We'll move on to the consent agenda. We have one item on the consent agenda. That is the minutes of the February 24th meeting. I would entertain a motion to dispose of this item.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Holman.
I move that we approve the consent agenda as submitted, to include item A, City Council minutes from the February 24th, 2020 meeting.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I will second.
Thank you. Motion's been made and seconded to approve the consent agenda. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion carries unanimously, 8-0. Thank you. We'll now move on to unfinished business. Could I please have the second reading of Bill 3529 by title only?
The second reading of Bill 3529, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri, amending the zoning map from C1 Neighborhood Commercial District and C2 General Commercial District to PUD Planned Unit Development District, a 5.04-acre tract of land located north of Pine Street, east of Sunset Lane, Raymore, Cass County, Missouri.
Thank you. I'd entertain a motion to dispose of this item.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Holman?
I move that we approve Bill 3529, reclassification of zoning Sunset Plaza.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I will second.
Thank you. The motion's been made and seconded to approve the second reading of Bill 3529. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion carries unanimously, 8-0. Could I please have the second reading of Bill 3530 by title only?
The second reading of Bill 3530, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri, approving the final plat for Sunset Plaza, a subdivision located in Town Center, fourth plat, Raymore, Cass County, Missouri.
Thank you. I'd entertain a motion to dispose of this item.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Holman?
I move that we approve Bill 3530, Sunset Plaza final plat.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I will second.
Thank you. The motion's been made and seconded to approve the second reading of Bill 3530. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in, did you have a question, Ms. Circo?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, thank you. Again, I just want to reiterate, I know we talked about it in the spring and a few weeks ago. When we get this and they start the building, I guess I keep on hearing from the people about the parking, and they keep on telling how we're going to do that. I've explained it. We talked about the no parking lanes on Pine North and on from Pine to 58 on Sunset to kind of have, well, not redness, that we would have no parking. We would set that up so we wouldn't cause all the havoc with cars if you have parking. We've discussed that, and I told people that's what we're doing. And I told them I'd reiterate that tonight, that the parking will be set for no parking, so the cars will not be parking that. We would watch that very closely. And so that's one of the big concerns on that parking. So I always told them to reiterate that for them. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Anyone else? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion carries unanimously, 8-0. Could I please have the second reading of Bill 3525 by title only?
The second reading of Bill 3525, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri, authorizing the city manager to enter into a contract with Forever Green Professional Lawn Care for mowing and landscaping services.
Thank you. I'd entertain a motion to dispose of this item.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Holman?
I move that we approve Bill 3525, award of contract for mowing and median landscaping services.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I will second.
Thank you. Motion's been made and seconded to approve the second reading of Bill 3525. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion carries unanimously, 8-0. Could I please have the second reading of Bill 3526 by title only?
The second reading of Bill 3526, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri, amending the fiscal year 2020 operating and internal services budgets.
Thank you. I'd entertain a motion to dispose of this item.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Holman?
I move that we approve Bill 3526, a budget amendment from the general fund for buildings and grounds.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I will second.
Thank you. The motion's been made and seconded to approve the second reading of Bill 3526. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion carries unanimously, 8-0. Thank you. Could I please have the second reading of Bill 3527 by title only?
The second reading of Bill 3527, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri, authorizing the city manager to approve the SCADA system upgrade by Microcom in the amount of $55,065.
Thank you. I'd entertain a motion to dispose of this item.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Holman?
I move that we approve Bill 3527, an upgrade to the SCADA system at the Owen Good Pump Station improvements.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I will second.
Thank you. The motion's been made and seconded to approve the second reading of Bill 3527. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion carries unanimously, 8-0. Thank you. Now move on to new business. Could I please have the first reading of Bill 3528 by title only?
The first reading of Bill 3528 by title only, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri, authorizing the city manager to enter into a contract for $15,000 with Brinton Electric Company for the replacement of trail lights in the Arbitrum at Memorial Park.
Thank you. Is there a staff report?
Thank you, sir. I would ask Mr. Icky to make a staff report on this item.
Thank you, sir. The item before the council this evening is a project from the capital improvement plan in the fiscal year 2020 budget. This will replace 13 of the trail lights, the decorative trail lights at the Arboretum Trail. These will replace the lights that are currently there, just replacing the poles and the hardware with the decorative lights that will mirror and match the lights that we have here at Municipal Circle. Looking forward to the council's approval. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions of staff? If there are no questions, I'd entertain a motion to dispose of this item.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Holman.
I move that we approve Bill 3528, award of contract for the Memorial Park Arboretum light replacements.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I will second.
Thank you. Motion's been made and seconded to approve the first reading of Bill 3528. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion carries unanimously, 8-0. Okay, please have the first reading of Bill 3531 by title only.
The first reading of Bill 3531 by title only, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri, authorizing the city manager to enter into an agreement with J.M. Fahey Construction Company for the Westgate Drive Extension Project, City Project Number 20-242-201, in the amount of $597,360.55, and authorizing the city manager to approve change orders within established budget constraints.
Thank you. I know we've been waiting on this one for a while, so I'd like to hear a great staff report on it.
You took my intro away from me, sir.
Oh, darn.
I would ask Mr. Krass to make a staff report on this item.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Fearborn. Mr. Mayor, members of the council, before you this evening is a contract for the construction of Westgate Drive, the final roadway project approved by the voters as part of the 2016 General Obligation Bond Project. We opened bids on February 27th. The bids received ranged from $597,360 to $701,325. Our internal engineer's estimate, based on final plans and specifications, was $628,000. We do recommend award to J.M. Fahey Construction. Over my time here, J.M. Fahey has done a number of projects successfully. We do look forward to working with them. Steve Casper, representing J.M. Fahey, is in the audience if council should have any detailed questions. That concludes staff report.
Thank you, sir. Yes, Mr. Holman.
Yes, Mr. Krass, do we have an estimated, I realize that's an estimate based on weather and all those kinds of things, but should this pass, when it would start and what general completion time would be?
I anticipate construction starting in May, and the contract is a 120-day time period.
Excellent. Thank you, sir.
Excellent. Anyone else? If not, I would entertain a motion to dispose of this item.
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Holman.
I proudly move that we approve Bill 3531, as has been a long time in coming.
Yes, it has.
Award of contract, Westgate Drive Extension Project.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I will happily second the motion.
Thank you. The motion has been happily made and seconded. Any further discussion? Yes, Mr. Barber.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I always like to tell a story. First of all, I didn't think I would live long enough to see this happen, and hopefully I'll live long enough to see it finish. But Mr. Holman is a colleague and a friend, has become a friend, but don't think that I haven't been on his short side. One of the first times I made a comment about that area and the light, I said, well, you know, folks can just make a right and go down through Belton, and there's a traffic light right there off Kentucky. And he let me have it that he wasn't going to send our citizens into another jurisdiction just so they could have a safe way out of our town. So lesson learned. So I am happily to see this project moving forward.
Absolutely. Anyone else? If not, all those in favor of the motion? Motion carries unanimously, 8-0. We'll now move on to public comments. If anyone from the public would like to address the council this evening, please step forward, state your name and address for the record, and keep your comments to 5 minutes or less. Seeing no one approach, we'll move on to mayor and council communication. And let's see, who have I not gone with first in a long time? Mr. Burt, go ahead. Start us off.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have nothing this evening.
Okay. Well, that was quick. Mr. Jacobson.
Well, of course, I want to thank Daryl Smith and the Hero Fund USA for helping us out with the vests. I thought that was awesome that they were able to do it, and I know being involved with Hero Fund USA, they're happy to get involved and help out with first responders. It is very important to them, and as a member as a member of the City Council, it's very important to me as well. So I just want to say thanks again to Daryl and the Chief for taking her time to meet with him and get this thing going. And then I also want to thank staff, Mr. Fairborn, your entire staff, whoever's involved with the coronavirus update. It looks like we are on top of it, and we're out there and informing everyone. That was a really comprehensive report, and I really appreciated that. So thank you. That's all I have, sir.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Circo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Again, just kind of on Mr. Jacobson, thank you for bringing that gentleman here to the chief so we can get this done. It's always great when we can improve our officers' abilities to be in the field and be comfortable. It's very important to keep them ready to go at any given moment. So thank you for that. That's a good, and the road. Thank you, Mr. Fairborn, and all the city and the staff for getting this thing together for that Kentucky road. It's a great day in Raymore. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Townsend.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll make mine brief as well. Thank you, Mr. Jacobson and staff, for bringing that forward on the Hero Fund and the receiving of the award from Mr. Smith as well. So excellent on that. And again to staff as well for this succinct report tonight on the coronavirus, giving us the information and what sources to go to. Very informative. I appreciate that and appreciate staff bringing that forward as well. So thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Mr. Barber.
No, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Kind of said my piece on the last go around, but again, yeah, I concur with all my fellow councilmen in seeing the officer up front here smiling while he was wearing the vest. I could tell, just from the look, I could tell it was more comfortable, and I know talking with Councilman Holman, he misses his service belt immensely over the years he was a police officer, but I was happy to get the report from Mr. Cataract. We're still building, we're still growing. We've got a lot of investment coming in to Raymore. The sale of Foxwood Springs, or the pending sale of Foxwood Springs, my understanding, I think April 1st is when they're trying to get that closed. So people do see the value of investing their money in Raymore, and that seems to be a consistent thing. And I appreciate staff and everybody's help in this council making those types of things happen. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Abdelgawad.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just real quick, I will echo the thanks to Mr. Murdock and staff for the update on the coronavirus. I think the part that I heard, the piece that I heard out of what he shared was there's no reason to panic, which I think we just need to all remind each other that over and over. It's just a flu. It's like the flu. No reason to panic. Don't need to buy all the toilet paper and hand sanitizer and medical masks. Most of us will be okay. If you're in one of the at-risk categories, then you need to take a little more precaution. But for most of us, nothing to worry about. And additionally, thanks to Chief and Mr. Smith for those exterior vests. I think that this is a good example of how the City of Raymore is not a top-down type of organization. I don't know if you guys heard Chief say that this request came from staff. So this is evidence, once again, we hear that often. I know we hear with curb replacement in streets that it's the boots on the ground lots of times that bring issues about streets and curb replacement to the forefront so that we can stay on top of the day-to-day of that, as well as what our computer programs project as the ones that need some help. So I just want to point that out, that our management here in the city listens to the people who work here and honors their requests and recommendation. And of course, as the wife of an officer, thank you for valuing his health. Because I know that does make a big difference. It's important for those guys, so thank you.
Mr. Holman.
Thank you, sir. Two things. One, I will not be here for the work session next week. I will be in training over in the St. Louis area with my current employment. And the other thing I wanted to say was thank you to Councilmember Jacobson. I believe firmly it takes a special type of person to file for office and then maintain that commitment for 2 years to the service, to provide service to the citizens of the city. It takes another level of an individual to go beyond that commitment and seek out things that make our lives better as citizens and make things better for staff. Thank you, sir. That's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Berenson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A lot of good comments up here tonight. I think they've reiterated everything that I wanted to say, so I will leave it at that, and thank you.
All right. Well, thank you. I also want to say thank you, Mr. Jacobson. I know you've been working with this with Mr. Smith and that team, and you knew of the need here in our city, and talking with the chief, and the chief's been doing a lot of background work on it already, and meetings within the department talking about that transition, and you were able to help us kind of get that to fruition a little quicker if it hadn't been for your assistance there. So thank you, Dale, for doing that and your commitment to the city. Also want to thank the Hero Fund for considering us. I know there are other agencies out there vying for their resources, and I'm glad they picked us for that. And by the way, Earl was merely smiling. One, he was the model, and two, he's a detective. He doesn't have to wear it all the time. And but when he does go back into patrol, I'm sure he'll be glad that he has that as a new piece of equipment that they can utilize. So with that, I don't think I have anything else for this evening, and I would ask Mr. Fearborn if he has anything else.
Nothing else, sir.
Okay, no need to go into executive session?
No, sir.
All right, then I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Holman.
I move that we adjourn this session of the Raymore City Council.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I will second.
Thank you. There's no discussion. All those in favor?